Is the new 2025 Dungeons & Dragons Monster Manual worth it? GameMasters here, and the too long didn't watch of this video is that the new Monster Manual is both yes, it's worth it, but no, it's not. I don't know, that's a touch convoluted, so let's go ahead and jump on in. For collectors, it won't matter what the book has in it. They're going to have it, right? For first-time players, there is plenty of monsters to fill in the gaming world. Even for experienced players, this book accomplishes what it set out to do, give a variety of monsters to throw at players. It is an easy flowing book. The stat blocks are very straightforward. The descriptions of the monsters, it's adequate enough, and there are some fun tables included within most of the entries, monster entries, that provide an array of random details. For example, if you rolled a 3 on the Earth Elemental table, that shows that it is made up of grass, moss, and plant roots. Rolling a 5 on the Medusa table shows that it was once a vain noble, and that their magical attempt to gain eternal beauty backfired, and transformed them into the snake-haired monster that it ultimately became. Or rolling a 7 on a Zorn's table shows that it really enjoys eating meteorites or moon rocks that have fallen. Perhaps one could even kind of train a Zorn to seek out these precious extraterrestrial elements with which to forge a truly magical sword, kind of use it as a metal detector of sorts. But fun tables like these provide a chance for one's imagination to really run wild and craft up some fun hooks and justifications as to why any given monster may show up in your campaign. There is an excellent section that goes over and explains the different, all of the different parts of a monster stat block. And it provides great detail as to what each part means. For example, it explains that monsters belong to various size categories, from tiny to small, medium, large, huge, or even gargantuan. Armor class. It explains that a monster's armor class includes its natural armor, dexterity, gear, and other defenses. Have you ever wanted to know what the challenge rating was? In this section, it states that the challenge rating, and this is really, okay, trying to formulate my words. It tells us that the challenge rating term is defined in the player's handbook, and this is the part where I begin to kind of side on the no side of things as to whether these books are worth it. And I'll give you a challenge rating as the prime example here. The Monster Manual tells us that challenge rating is defined in the player's handbook, while guidance on using a challenge rating to plan potential combat encounters is in the Dungeon Master's Guide. So now we have to reference the player's handbook to define it, and it tells us that the challenge rating summarizes the threat a monster poses to a group of 4-player characters. And that's great, but what is a challenge rating? How do you get it? Okay, well, now looking in the DMG to plan potential combat encounters, and it tells us how to determine how much treasure to give out based on a monster's challenge rating, how to hire a creature for your bastion based on its challenge rating, and how to give experience points based on any given monster's challenge rating. But the bigger issue is, nowhere does it tell us in the Monster Manual as to how to determine what a monster's challenge rating should be. Yes, each given stat block has that CR already listed, but what I'm talking about is us creating up our own homebrew monster. Let's say you want to create up an alien from, the movie Alien. There's nothing at all that tells us how to create our own monsters. We can certainly make educated guesses, and I'd wager that it would be a bit taller than your average human, so we can set its size to large. Its alignment is likely somewhere in the spectrum of chaotic, but that's really it. What would you reference to determine its armor class, or any of its stats? Do you simply just randomly roll dice like you would for your player character? What determines its top speed? And this is my biggest complaint about the new Monster Manual. There is simply no way to custom make your own monster. All it tells us is to reference the Dungeon Master's Guide to see how to create a creature. And in there, all it tells us is to look at another entry already in the Monster Manual and reskin it. And while that can kind of sort of work, it doesn't allow for a monster creation from the ground up. Yes, experienced players can easily work around all of that and come up with their own methods of monster creation. But because these new books, these new sets of books, the Monster Manual, Player's Handbook, and Dungeon Master's Guide, were designed for newer players and by extension new dungeon masters, I can't help but feel that this was a majorly overlooked element that really should have been included. Consider this. When the Player's Handbook came out, we got rules on how to create and craft equipment. It told us about the raw materials, the time it would take, what tools our characters might need in order to accomplish crafting equipment. It told us most everything we might need. Taking it a step further, the Player's Handbook also explained how to brew potions of healing, how to scribe spell scrolls, and of course, how to create our characters from the ground up. The Dungeon Master's Guide, this gave us extensive rules and explanations on how to create custom backgrounds for players and NPCs, how to create magic items, how to create custom spells, even how to create adventures and full-on campaigns, all in a literal step-by-step process. Step 1, Step 2, Step 3. My point is, both the Player's Handbook and the Dungeon Master's Guide established rules and guides for custom creation step by step, whereas the Monster Manual simply fails at this. By comparison, look at the Tales of the Valiant's Monster Vault book. It gives us a whopping 41 pages of information of building your own monster. Yes, one of the suggestions is to look at another that's already in the book and simply reskin it. And admittingly, regardless of which system you're playing, that is an easy way to have a customized monster. But with 41 pages of detail, no stone was really left unturned, so creating your alien from the ground up is fairly easy to do from that book's perspective. I'm disappointed in the 2025 Monster Manual because it does not provide to us what the previous two books did, how to craft and create the core material provided in a step-by-step way. Is that in and of itself a reason to say that this book is not worth it? Well, to some it might be. To others, it might not be. I'm simply here trying to present the information. I personally have created many custom monsters over the years, but I've spoken with other DMs that say that they've never had to, or that if they had, all they did was reskin something that was already there. Using a green dragon, for example, as our alien, since it's already got elements of acid associated with it, and then making a few tweaks here and there. That is a viable way to make that work. I'd prefer to go from the ground up. At the end of the day, I was super excited about the new 2024 Player's Handbook as well as the new 2024 Dungeon Master's Guide. I felt that they brought elements to the game that were an improvement over what we got from their original 2014 counterparts, and have made it that those two books made it new, super new player friendly to both navigate the pages and explore the contents. And while the new 2025 Monster Manual does provide a fantastic variety of monsters with which to use in your games, which does what a Monster Manual is supposed to do, it's not much of an improvement and certainly doesn't present anything revolutionary from its 2014 counterpart. Personally, I'd like to have seen some more space included on making them from scratch. But as the dude would say, that's like your opinion, man. Real fast, I'd like to ask that if you got anything out of today's video, please consider giving it a thumbs up and subscribing to the channel. That is a great way to help me out, and I also want to thank you for watching. I especially want to thank my YouTube members and my Patreon supporters, as their contributions have been, gosh, above and beyond. I'll leave links down in the description if you'd like to check out my Patreon page, and we also have a very rockin' Discord server if you'd like to check that out too. Obviously, monsters in any given role-playing game are a must-have. While your general run-of-the-mill dungeon delve is always going to be fun with everyday creatures like ghouls and goblins, blink dogs and hook horrors, perhaps even a purple worm or three, it's always going to have more impact once you are able to populate it with customized monsters that really complement and challenge your players, especially if it takes them to task and forces them to really make use of their abilities and specialized tactics tactics. And for me, having a step-by-step guide on how to create those kind of monsters from the ground up would have been a for sure, surefire way for me to, without a doubt, put this into the yes, 100%, this book is worth it side of the table. With that element missing, I simply can't. To that end, let me know down in the comments what guides you've used over the years to fully homebrew up some fun monsters. And also, too, tell me what your most epic monster has been that you have custom created. Again, let me know down in the comments. And until next our paths cross, check out this video next.